This is an introduction to the Midtown Plan that is intended to replace the Young Eglinton Secondary Plan. It is a community-based. The current state of planning has been described as being archaic and a joke, so says an eminent OMB planner, and I doubt that anybody in the community would disagree with that. At this time, development is outpacing planning, and planning is actually taking place by precedence rather than by rational thinking. The planning that is required needs to expand the scope, and it should set the direction. Therefore, the Midtown Plan has been devised as a means of undertaking planning by local means, and it can inform the secondary plan or official planning as it comes along, and likewise stand on its own merits to speak to the city planners and to development. Involves a large area where there's intensification within stable neighborhoods. If, for instance, we take this area and overlay it on Manhattan, we see that the width of this Midtown planning area is the same as Manhattan itself. The Midtown Plan to date is comprised of a very simplistic document that makes some references to some areas and leaves most alone. To start with Midtown Plan, I want to introduce first principles, and these can be the stars that guide us in the process of developing the Midtown Plan. First of all, we want it to be able to guide growth and change on an ongoing incremental basis, because it is not a fixed plan and it evolves over time. It should consolidate developments to achieve comprehensive outcomes rather than standalone developments on smaller and smaller parcels that are unrelated to each other. It should be able to leverage intensification to fulfill identified local goals. If we don't identify those goals, then they can't go after them. It should add value on the basis of public-private partnerships that interlace project to project. It needs to advance the public realm, and therefore we need to identify, describe, and so expand the components. Similarly, we need to improve the open space offering, to broaden its definitions, and to extend the continuums. We need to be able to define transitions with measurable strategies, because we need to be able to maintain our stable neighborhoods and protect them, at the same time accommodate intensification. We need to embrace public transit, because Midtown's road network is finite, and yet its population density is anticipating increases. We need to articulate retail structures, because we need to have walkable access to services and to remove people's reliance or dependency upon cars. And likewise, we do need to define parking and loading and to lay out effective consolidated facilities. In this manner, we should be able to free up public realm and open space, and meanwhile provide the vehicular services that are required to make sure that our local retail enterprises are healthy and strong. So those are the principles. Those are the stars to guide us. So we step through the plan. The next item is to rename the Midtown Plan to take over from the Young Eglinton Secondary Plan. In this fashion, we're able to reflect the entire planning area that it encompasses. We need to set up a framework for managing the plan. We need to have a unified community council decision-making process rather than the fragmentation we do today. We need to have a single, locally situated city planning presence rather than the divided structure we have today. And we need to have an ongoing community consultation practice. All these are required to facilitate effective planning. The Midtown Plan's instruments are to be considered as a statutory instrument that we know as a secondary plan, and, most importantly, a non-statutory brief that can inform rather than regulate. In fact, the non-statutory can inform the future statutory. The process involves desktop planning review of the existing Young Eglinton Secondary Plan and its amendments, considering other secondary plans and their initiatives, and looking at the guidelines for mid-rise, tall buildings, etc. We need to recognize Midtown structures, including its intensification areas, stable areas, and most importantly, transit significant elements. In the intensification areas, these are the Young Eglinton Town Center, the Young Eglinton Growth Center, the four main streets of Young, Eglinton, Mount Pleasant, and Bayview, and the Davisville Corridor. These are targeted for growth and change. Stable areas include our residential neighborhoods, apartment neighborhoods, parks, and open space. And with our increasing population, whereas once they talked about towers in the park, we need to now think about the fact that we are dealing with houses in the park as a means to augment and balance our public realm and open space continuums. The transit significant elements are the emerging Eglinton Crosstown LRT corridor with its 4 LRT station locations at Chaplin, Avenue Road, Mount Pleasant, and Bayview, the Young Eglinton Station Gateway, and the Davisville Station and Rail Yard. We need to look at the boundaries and review these. The Chaplin LRT station is just outside the present plan. The Bayview LRT station is on the edge of the plan. The Bayview Avenue Main Street structure is actually divided down the middle of the street. And we should also look at the Eglinton LRT corridor extensions east and west. Public transit is a very important part. We have the Eglinton LRT corridor, and we need to see how this integrates with the citywide transit plan. We need to utilize the 2,500 square meter construction void below each station for retail and parking, and consider off-hour commercial use of the LRT for goods and garbage shipping. The ground level stations. These require comprehensive facilities that are comfortable, secure pedestrian areas, bus standing and stabling capabilities, turnaround for bus routes, and also taxi stands. These should be integrated with convenient shopping and services at the station environments and leverage intensification to fund improvements. The Young Eglinton Centre, in the case of developing the station environment, is a significant gateway connecting to Young Eglinton. Establish a below-grade, flush-level pedestrian concourse connecting with all 4 corners. Important part of Midtown is having a retail structure plan that can provide significant resources to sustaining a pedestrian-oriented population. Retail is there to serve the Midtown community. The Young Eglinton Centre portion requires recognition that transit throughput as being the primary retail market, and optimize the transit gateway for transit retail engagement. Consider that the northwest and southwest corners of Young Eglinton be consolidated and provide seamless retail links above street level and at the transit concourse level. And retail is being incorporated into the transit concourse levels as part of the ridership experience. Main streets. Retail amalgams are reliant upon a framework. Avenue studies are required to inform developments. Retail is to serve pedestrian catchments, and parking is to broaden the market opportunities of these shops. Storefront continuums are not to be interrupted by voids, parking lots, ramps, and big box stores. And we need to see that we sleeve big box stores behind the fine grain retail. And ultimately, the last item is the construction phasing. We require a strategy to reduce construction impacts because there's going to be significant protracted construction occurring along Eglinton with the construction of the LRT. The Midtown Plan is put forward to develop a comprehensive strategy. We need to see that decisions are made in the community, and we should be working towards what I refer to as a Made in Toronto solution as we used before in the TTC block. The area is represented by a number of community associations. Here's shown Eureka SPRA, Sherwood Park Residents Association, as the northeast quadrant. This northeast quadrant represents a high population density, as can be seen here flowing out onto Yonge Street, and again we get a good impression of how well streets are detailed to accommodate the population. In this northeast portion of the growth center, the street allowances account for only 17%. It's useful here to see that Manhattan's gridiron provides many more roads. Sherwood Park has been working on strategies to identify opportunities for additional pedestrian movements. And from this arise the possibilities that can go in tandem with development. SARA is the Southeast Resident Ratepayer Association, and it is bounded on 3 sides by main streets, and can see the site for the Davisville School replacement, the apartment development to the south. Here we see the intersection of Davisville and Yonge. The opportunity was overlooked to provide spooling space on the sidewalk. Oriole Park Association has to address the Young Eglinton Centre and the 2 main streets, the existing subway station, and soon to be introduced new station at Chaplin in Eglinton and Avenue Road in Eglinton. Lytton Park straddles the existing secondary plan area and has to contend with the avenue development along Yonge Street. EPRA deals with an older residential neighborhood in immediate proximity to the Young Eglinton Crossroads. Stanley Knowles Co-op is a vertical community. We need to go beyond the basics of planning policies and zoning restrictions. And this is what the non-statutory portion of the Midtown Plan is all about, is to actually articulate what is desirable. The desirables can be used as offsets to heightened density concerns. Nor should we forget for a moment that there is a place for buildings on tiptoes in order to increase the expanse of the public realm. Likewise, in our climate, there is a place for urban rooms where we're able to mitigate conditions. And these urban rooms, in many instances, can actually be convertible spaces that adjust themselves depending on the time of the year. When we're looking at the town center, retail is not something that occurs at one level. Again, one only has to look at what is going on at Dundas Square to appreciate how these types of complexes can work together. And finally, a favorite of mine is actually building spaces under the streets, connecting one building to the next in a seamless environment. The overall purpose of the Midtown Plan is to create a planning environment, a context within which major stakeholders are able to get together to come up with a made-in-Toronto solution, because that is what is required.